and sure feet and the long the mind. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. 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 We wear the mask.
Famous quotes by Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
Dream. Live the dream. Live the dream. Because I am a king. Because I am a king.
Because I am a king.
Because I am a king. I am a king. I am a king. Because 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 I am a king. I am a king.
In the end, we will not be remembered by the words of our enemies, but by the silence of our friends. King,
Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. King,
I have a dream that one day my 4 little children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the contents of their character. King,
Whatever your job is, do it well. A man should do his job so well that the living, the dead, and the unborn could do it no better. King.
that, O Lord, an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. King,
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. King, I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound in the starless midnight of racism and war, that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood will never take over reality, but truth and unconditional love will always have the last word. King, we must learn to live together as brothers, or perish together as fools. King,
whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. King,
faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. King,
freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. King,
let no man, no man, pull you low enough to hate him. King,
let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. And let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge to make America what it ought to be. We have the opportunity to make America a better nation. And I want to thank God once more for allowing me to be here with you. You know, several years ago I was in New York City autographing the first book that I had written. And while sitting there autographing books, a demented black woman came up. The only question I heard from her was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" And I was looking down writing and I said, "Yes." The next minute, I felt something beating on my chest. Before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to Harlem's hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon. That blade had gone through and X-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, the main artery. And once that's punctured, you drown in your own blood and that's the end of you. It came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I had merely sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later after that operation, after my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, they allowed me to move around in the wheelchair in the hospital. They allowed me to read some of the mail that came in, and from all over the states in the world, kind letters came in. I read a few, but one of them, I'll never forget it. I had received one from the president and the vice president, but I had forgotten what those telegrams said. I had received a visit and a letter from the governor of New York, but I had forgotten what that letter said. But there was another letter that came from a little girl, a young girl, who was a student at the White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter and I'll never forget it. It says simply, "Dear Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School." She said, "While it should not matter, but I would like to mention that I'm a white girl. I've read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering. And I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. Well, I'm simply writing you to say that I'm so happy that you didn't sneeze. Now, I want to say tonight, I too want to say tonight that I am happy that I didn't sneeze, because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960 when students all over the South started sitting in at lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream, taking the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy, which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1961 when we decided to take a ride for freedom and ended segregation and interstate travel. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1962 when Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. And whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they are going somewhere, because a man can't ride your back unless it is bent. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been here in 1963 when black people of Birmingham, Alabama aroused the conscience of this nation and brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have had a chance later that year in August to try to tell America about a dream that I had. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been in Selma, Alabama to see the great movements there. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been in Memphis to see a community rally. Sisters who are suffering. I am so happy that I didn't sneeze, that they were telling me about the threats of what would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. And I don't mind, like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Thank you, Jesus.